side by side, mixed up, mixed together, and we would all just want only the heavenly, and yet we see, even in the birth of Jesus Christ, we've got the Gore and the glorious. And so I want to start out talking about the Gore. Take a look at Luke chapter 2, and we're going to look at parts of this whole chapter here. But Luke chapter 2 starts this way. In the days of Caesar Augustus, in those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census be taken of the Roman world. I want you to know, not even the Son of God could be born without the government intruding. I mean, even Jesus coming. I mean, stop and think of it. Okay, Mary's okay. She's figured out. She's going to have a baby. It's going to be glorious. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be so great. So she had to no doubt assume or project what that would look like, what that would be like. And I don't think she thought that in the last moments of her pregnancy, she was going to have to make a trip in order to sign up for a census. You know, the IRS just is always there, no matter what, okay? There will always be a Caesar Augustus, and you're always going to have to deal with things. I'm telling you, I get so tired, and I don't even do it. I mean, Anita gets the mail, Anita does the bills, Anita takes care of all of those things, and she's on the phone talking to about medications and all kinds of things. That it just seems like life is full of those interruptions, those invasions, those bureaucratic things, and it just happens. And even if you are the parents of the Son of God, you're still not going to escape it, okay? It's just part of life. And I'm telling you, there's so many things that are just part of life that we've got to deal with. We've got to accept. By the way, God never mingled or entered in and said, well, this is my son, so I'm going to make him exempt. It didn't happen that way. As a matter of fact, the very reason for God coming, the very reason for Jesus entering this world is so that he could be, that song really was perfect, one of us. Same dirt, same blood, same flesh, same cold, same viruses, same this, same government, that kind of thing. Jesus is able to identify with the Gore in our life because he did this. And that is just so helpful to me. It really is. Now, so Mary and Joseph had to change their plans, and they had to go all the way from Nazareth to Bethlehem, even as she's about ready to have the baby. And sure enough, wouldn't you know it, they couldn't wait to get back home to Nazareth. Here they are in Bethlehem, and she says, oh no, the baby's kicking. Oh no, the baby's coming. And I don't think there were probably lots of possibilities of places in a small town to go, but they went to the inn. Nope, not here. Maybe they went someplace else. Maybe they went to a family member's. I'm sorry, we're filled up. And here we've got the most important birth of ever, and there's just no space. Now, I want to tell you something about God. He's spirit. He doesn't need space. He's everywhere, okay? He's nowhere. He's everywhere. I don't know. Spirit is like that. But once he became a human being, I'm sorry, I've got to take up space. It's part of being a human. I may not take up a lot of space. I may take up more space than I used to, okay? But the fact of the matter is, if you got a body, you got to have a place. And Mary, I'm sure, imagined the place she would have her baby would be with her mother at her side, and it would be this really special thing. And all of a sudden, it's time, and they couldn't even find a bedroom. And so they had to have space, they had to have place. And so the closest thing to private they could find is a stable. And can you imagine Mary laying down on the dirt floor of this cattle barn? And the smells, and the animals, and how nosy they were. It's gory. And you know what? Birth is gory. I mean, you got water, you got blood, you might have screams. Who knows? Just because Mary was having the Son of God, do you think that meant it was painless? I don't think that baby was any easier to deliver than his brothers and sisters that came later. I don't think so. Did you know Jesus had brothers and sisters? He did, later. But Mary had to experience and go through the Gore, and all her plans, all her dreams got somewhat shattered, or at least reimagined. And then when this baby was born, she didn't have the beautiful blue blanket from the baby shower. She had to wrap him in swaddling cloths. What's that mean? Like, I have a sense it means whatever rags she could find that she could wrap up tight to do the best she could do with what she had available to her. And then, where did she lay that baby? Well, she looked around, and there was hardly any empty space probably, and she saw this cattle trough. Maybe she found the cleanest hay she could find. Maybe she made the best she could do of it, but it was crude. And here we have Jesus, welcomed in the world in such a dank, dark place as this. Now, who were the baby's first guests? Grandma? Grandpa? Aunts and uncles? Even a doctor? You know, shepherds, third shift shepherds, guess what they smell like? Sheep. Yeah. They are not what you'd consider the most credible people in the world. Why, Caesar Augustus could have come. How about the governor, Quirinius? Or how about the religious elite? Come and see. No, now I have to say that in Matthew it tells us that they did have these visitors coming in eventually, these wise men, so how mysterious and glorious is that? But their first things, can you imagine, you've just had a baby, your hair looks like what it looks like, and you're in a barn, and all of a sudden, these strange shepherds barge in. And now they're gawking. God, is this your dream? It's not mine. But do you know what it says? Mary, and we'll look at this in a moment here, but Mary stopped and pondered and treasured and marveled. Because something was happening that was beyond what the circumstances looked like. I want that kind of attitude in life. I want that kind of perspective. Because you see, even if God is sending a Savior, even if it is glorious, even if it is wonderful, it still comes down to this world, this debased place, and in the midst of either very routine and mundane things or chaos. I think that the Gospels, when it talks about the coming of Jesus, it's really talking about how you and I live our lives with faith. Life isn't easy. Earthly things, human things, are crude. They smell bad. Let me go on. Let me keep going. So, 8 days after Jesus is born, and he's been bounced on the knee for 8 days now, Mary and Joseph make a trip to Jerusalem to have their baby circumcised, just like every other Jewish boy. I never understand circumcision. I just don't. I'm sorry. If God wants to make a mark to say you are my people, it involves blood. It involves screams of little boys. I mean, really, does God have a sense of humor or what? I mean, but you know what? There are things. I mean, it's kind of like communion. What's that about? We are remembering the gore of the blood of Jesus Christ. Without faith, it doesn't make sense. But faith is this intermingling of the blood and the knife and the circumcision with this means that we are clean or that we are set apart. It's just amazing. These rituals of the church, these things that have to do with water and blood and those kind of things. Now, I'm telling you, when you look at the Bible itself and forget kind of our what do I want to call it? Our sermonette kind of approaches to it. Do you know that verse 21, it says that the baby is circumcised on the 8th day, and then it also says that Mary was purified as a ritual. That wasn't the same time. Leviticus chapter 12 talks all about this, and after a mother had a baby, the mother couldn't return to the worshiping community without waiting a certain amount of time because of the blood being unclean. And then she's to go to the temple, and she is to and she is to have this purification ritual, just like every other mother. And by the way, Jesus was the firstborn, and because he was the firstborn son, he was to be consecrated to God. and with this purification and consecration of the firstborn, they are to offer sacrifices. Now, if you'll read about this, the sacrifice is typically a lamb. And we're told that really it's two sacrifices. It's meant to be a burnt offering and a sin offering. However, there is a stipulation for poor people. That if they can't afford a lamb, they don't have to be left out. It's still going to cost them something. There's still going to be a sacrifice. But they can bring 2 doves or 2 pigeons and sacrifice them. They cost a lot less than a lamb does. And what does it say that Mary and Joseph gave as a sacrifice? A lamb? No. It says that they gave the doves. Which means, without saying too much, it means that they didn't have enough money to make things work. All right? Talk about the Gore here. Can you imagine how hard it was for them to make that trip and to travel and then to have to go back to Jerusalem again and everything? Now, were they willing to do it? Yes, they were doing it to express their faith. They were doing it because this is what the faithful do. But it doesn't mean it was easy. And by the way, I invite you this afternoon or sometime soon to take a look at Leviticus chapter 12. It is like Leviticus 12 helps us understand Luke chapter 2 verse 21 a whole lot as far as what was happening in that kind of a thing. But what I want us to see here is really, Jesus or not, life can be difficult, gory, crude. And it's the crude realities that anchor Jesus' arrival in our difficulties. There's a connection. God didn't do this because he wanted Jesus to have it hard. God did this because he understands life isn't perfect for us, and he wants us to know he can identify. And then we've got the glorious. I don't want to give the picture that all there was hardship and trouble and problems at all. No, God was so excited about the coming of Jesus that there are glorious indicators that something monumental, something eternal, something amazing is happening that transcends the circumstances of Jesus' arrival. Luke chapter 2 verse 12, it says that the child in the manger is actually a divine sign that would precisely identify the baby. So the shepherds are out on the hillside and they're just having another day around the campfire trying to stay warm, whatever. And all of a sudden there's an angel, and the angel announces, this night is greater than any other night. Something amazing is happening, something that's going to transform people, something that's going to change human history. And then all of a sudden, a host, all of the cosmos was lit up with this angelic choir. And it's amazing to me. There was an announcer, and then there was music. A chorus. Stop and think of it. How wonderful that God bursts forth music like he can't contain it. And the angels just sang about the glory of God, and it was wonderful. And so here we have the common and the crude, and the angelic and the divine. What do I want to say? Bumping into each other. And the shepherds were told, now, if you go, well, they didn't say if you go, but they said that in Bethlehem, there is a baby that is born, and the baby that's in the manger is the one to watch. He's the one that's going to do it. He's the one that is the gift of God. He's the one that's going to change the world. Now, when the shepherds came, they didn't have to go from stable to figure out which child is in the manger. That was very specific. There was only one child that had just been born that was placed in a cattle trough. So it was like very clear. And so you've got the glorious and the Gore all connected. And the shepherds praising God, they couldn't believe that they were the first recipients to hear of the coming redemption. Now, if all of heaven is going to have a chorus, wouldn't you think in the audience would be the king? Or somebody great, and instead it's the third shifty shepherds. Pretty amazing. God doesn't forget. We forget. God remembers those who are so often forgotten. And then the next thing we see is that when Mary and Joseph were at the temple for the purification and the consecration of Jesus, again, separate from the 8th day when Jesus was circumcised, Simeon is an old man, a wise old man, and he was a prophet. And he had this special relationship with Jesus. Get this, with God, I mean. God can tell you some things personally that no one else knows. It can be that you and God are on that kind of a basis. And Simeon was one of those people. And God whispered in Simeon's ear, maybe over and over again, Simeon, you're looking for a Savior. You're looking for the Messiah. You're reading about him. I'm telling you, before you die, your very physical eyes are going to see the very physical body of the person who I am going to send. Talk about glorious. And then Simeon, he's in the temple. He's this old man. He might be bent over. And he sees Mary and Joseph and the baby being presented. And then it's as if the Holy Spirit elbows him and says, that's the one. And what does Simeon do? He grabs the baby, takes him into his arms, and begins to prophesy about the coming of the Savior. Glorious. Amazing. As if that's not enough, Anna is somebody who has been a widow most of her adult life, and she has spent her life in the temple fasting and praying and worshiping and depending on God for everything. And she has fine-tuned intimacy with God. Probably her life was very, very difficult, and yet she knew what was important, and she spent her life in the temple. No doubt, everybody knew her. She's one of those people, she's there every day. And Anna sees this baby, and Anna says, that's the Redeemer. Now, Mary and Joseph already have had all these experiences, but every time something like this happens, the shepherds barge in. Simeon takes the baby. Anna does this. They see. As crude as this, what is happening is, it is more than that. It is glorious. Now, chapter 2, verse 19. It says, when the shepherds came And they found the baby where God said the baby would be. It says Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. Do you know what treasure means? It means she was saying this moment is deep, significant, meaningful. It's as if she took a snapshot of that moment. And it says that she pondered all these things. She thought about them and thought about them and thought about them. God is in this. I am part of what God is bringing about. So cool. And then in chapter 2, verse 33, when Mary and Joseph witnessed the old man swooping Jesus into his arms and prophesying about the influence that Jesus would have and the effect it would have on Mary, it says that both Mary and Joseph marveled at what had been said about their son. Marveled. Awe, wonder, amazement. How is this going to happen? God, this is wonderful. I want you to know, God wants you to be a part of something where you will just marvel at the unfolding of God's grace and our involvement in the story. And then it says in chapter 2, verse 51, now this is a little later, it's the same chapter, but this is when Jesus was 12, and he wasn't lost at the temple, but his parents thought he was. And they went to get Jesus, and Mary was pretty upset with her son. It's like, you've been irresponsible. And he's like, no, I've been responsible. I'm about my dad's business. I'm doing what I'm to be doing. And it's like, what was her response? It says when she went to retrieve him, it says his mother Mary treasured all these things in her heart. She paused. And instead of slapping the boy, she thought, hey, this is part of something amazing, bigger, from God. Pretty cool. Now, as a result of their trip to Jerusalem after the purification and the firstborn, it says that they didn't go back to Bethlehem. They, at this point, went to Nazareth with their son. And it's recorded that he grew and became strong. Verse 40. And he was filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was on him. Amazing. Jesus was going to find his hometown and begin to grow. And then after the story of Jesus at the temple, at 12 years old, here's what it says in chapter 2, verse 51. Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor of God and man. Can you think of anything better than for Mary and Joseph to watch and see that God was a part of all the Gore and the glorious, and they were all mingled together, and the result was their child was maturing, developing in wisdom, in stature, in favor with God and other people. How wonderful. Mom and Dad, every one of us. If you're going to follow God, it doesn't mean that you're going to be excused from the pain of this world. But it does mean that in the midst of it, you can see the fingerprints of God. He's here. And it makes all the difference. It truly, truly does. And so, as the Gore and the Glorious happen side by side, which is very confusing, I want you to learn from Mary and Joseph. I want you to treasure each of those moments. I want you to ponder their significance. And I want to marvel with you that God leaves heaven to live among us, to show us how to live, to die for us, to be our Savior, our Redeemer, and our friend. I'm going to pray, and then we're going to watch this video. God, in the midst of the government bureaucracy and the blood and the gore and the ordinary and the common, invade, giving us signs and exuberant experiences, so that we will know that we are not alone in living for you, and that our faith may be rewarded. Teach us to treasure, to ponder, and to marvel. In Jesus' name, amen.